Welcome to the Deep Dive. We plunge into complex topics so you can get informed fast. Today we're looking at a civil lawsuit that, well, it really pushes the boundaries of typical legal cases. We're working from court filings, some legal analysis too, and our goal to unpack how a pro se plaintiff, Joshua Haltom, is using his case, Haltom v. City of Henderson Police Department, as, well, more than just a lawsuit. He sees it as a catalyst for a divinely ordained jubilee, liberation, and something he calls a rapturing state.
Right. And what's really striking isn't just that he's mixing legal arguments with these very spiritual concepts. It's how he's doing it. He's taking ancient frameworks, biblical ideas, even elements he interprets from Kabbalah, and applying them to demand this really radical societal change through the legal system. It's like he's trying to turn a standard lawsuit into, well, a public crusade.
Okay, so before we get too deep into the spiritual side, let's just ground ourselves. What's the actual legal dispute about? What are his core complaints against the Henderson Police, the CHPD?
Well, the foundation is his claim of systemic constitutional violations. We're talking First, Fourth, and 14th Amendments. He's alleging a pattern, not just isolated incidents, things like repeated traffic stops, citations, arrests. He also claims they rejected his clergy ID and his religious license plates. And a major point is the detention of his mother, Tamara Askew, who's 62.
His mother? For what?
Apparently, for a nonviolent misdemeanor, he frames it all as part of this larger pattern of infringement on their rights. And interestingly, his court filings aren't just written for the judge. He explicitly says he's addressing the American people. He's clearly aiming beyond the courtroom.
Right, okay, so that sets the legal stage. But then, as you said, it takes this extraordinary turn. He talks about Jubilee. How does that fit into a modern lawsuit?
Yeah, this is where it gets really unique. He's using the biblical Jubilee, from Leviticus 25,
Yeah.
metaphorically. In the Bible, Jubilee is about liberation, forgiving debts, restoring rights, basically hitting reset to fix inequalities. Haltom takes that idea and applies it here. He's framing his case as demanding that kind of liberation from what he sees as systemic harassment by the CHPD.
Okay, liberation, a clean slate. But I saw references to Zohars. That sounds like Kabbalah.
Yeah, exactly. He brings in Kabbalistic concepts too. He refers to 48 Zohars, these mystical texts, but he reinterprets them as conditional cities of refuge for the CHPD, meaning they only offer sanctuary, metaphorically speaking, if the department actually aligns itself with justice. It's conditional.
Conditional refuge. And I think there's a 49th Zohar mentioned.
Yes, the 49th Zohar. He says this one is gifted to the freed prisoner and acts as a permanent witness against what he calls the CHPD's carceral violence. He has this really powerful line: "You cannot hold the keys to cities of refuge while locking the gates." He calls this whole approach prophetic jurisprudence.
Prophetic jurisprudence. Wow, okay, so he's demanding not just legal remedy, but some kind of spiritual reckoning too. This brings us to the rapturing state. That sounds intense. Is he talking about the end of the world?
Not in a literal physical sense, no. It's definitely metaphorical. He uses it to signify a radical societal upheaval, a kind of divine judgment leading to renewal, a new heaven and a new earth, as he puts it. The imagery is really strong. Things like false stars shine bright but burn to ash when the book opens, and he's clear the reckoning is divine.
So like a spiritual overthrow almost.
It's sort of, yeah. He even draws this Exodus parallel. He casts the CHPD as Pharaoh, basically, warning them they face a similar divine reckoning if they don't change course, if they defy his claims.
Yeah.
It's a call for fundamental transformation backed by these spiritual threats.
That's a huge vision to attach to a civil suit. So if this reckoning is coming, how does he see it actually happening today, especially with, the internet and social media everywhere?
Ah, that's key. He flat out says the jury is now the internet. He believes that public court documents, he cites his docket number, 103849, along with victim testimony, are now archived online everywhere. He thinks this creates irreversible public accountability.
So public opinion becomes the judge and jury.
In a way, yes. He argues that citizen oversight has replaced the voir dire, the jury selection process. The whole thing becomes a public inquest, in his view. He even points to specific examples, like his wife recording an officer during a stop back in May 2024, as proof of the shift towards public documentation.
Interesting. So the internet isn't just A platform, it's almost like the mechanism for this divine judgment he talks about.
That seems to be exactly his argument. He says social media ensures violations written in blood cannot be erased by poisonous ink. So for him, this digital transparency is the modern tool for spiritual accountability. It makes injustice undeniable, forces public pressure, and in his view, actually accelerates both the Jubilee and this rapturing state he envisions.
What an absolutely extraordinary way to frame a legal battle. He's blending law, prophecy, Kabbalah, and digital activism all into one.
It really is something, and it definitely makes you think, doesn't it? It challenges the neat lines we usually draw between, say, church and state in the legal sphere. And it really highlights the growing power of digital platforms, not just to shape opinions, but maybe even to influence legal outcomes, or at least the public perception of justice.
Absolutely. It kind of leaves you with this question. What happens to accountability? What forms does it take when someone declares the jury is now the world and its verdict is inevitable? Definitely something to think about.